Here's a question. What year did good music in the mainstream die? Answers will vary from generation to generation, but many will tell you somewhere around 2008 to 2013, specifically when rock faded from mainstream chart play, and in its place we got terrible rappers, hedonistic electropop anthems, and everyone's favorite teen idol, Justin Bieber. Over these past 10.5 years, the internet has been bombarded with complaints of modern music being overproduced, poorly written schlock, with particular acrimony towards Justin Bieber mumble rappers and boy bands. It just seems that, with a scant few exceptions, good music in the mainstream is dead. And you know, when it comes to the top 100, yes, I completely agree with that. Nowadays, you don't even have to try to get a massive #1 hit, partially because of the prevalence of anti-intellectualism in the general public, but also because these hits have bought out written all over them. Let's not beat around the bush here. The vast majority of pop and rap celebrities nowadays got to where they are now because they had the luck of having rich parents who could buy them all the success in the world in a music industry that will never stop shoving them down your throats, and one that benefits from building Stalinist personality cults around its idols. It's a depressing state of affairs, a classist industry that rewards already rich brats with even more copious quantities of wealth, while hard-working artists gain underground cult success at best. What's that you heard? An underground music scene does indeed exist still, something that all the Justin Bieber A-loggers in the early 2010s should have been focusing on more than the only Justin Bieber song they even know about. For this video, I'm going to be shedding a light on some brilliant underground music released from 2010 onwards. Many of these acts are from the rock and metal genres, but I'll also throw in some electronic acts in there as well. So without any further delay, here is definitive proof that good music didn't die in the 2010s. It just went underground. The first artist I want to shed some light on is a drum and bass artist. My followers know me as the king of furry metalheads, but truth be told, I love late 90s and early 2000s electronic music, particularly drum and bass, a style I happen to come across here and there via the PlayStation 1's library of games. If that style of electronica happens to be your thing, I'd recommend PSIX. I recently discovered this artist through the YouTube algorithm, and I have to say, this is damn authentic old school drum and bass / jungle music. If you just close your eyes, you'll find yourself transported back to those good old days before 9/11, when drum and bass music was in every other PlayStation game on the market. PSIX is like a time machine in musical form. If you want some genuinely good and artistically viable electronic music from the current decade, PSIX is a mandatory listen. So, I'm one of those people who really likes video game music, specifically from the 90s. You know, your Super Nintendos, PlayStations, Sega fucking Mega Drives. If you want those sounds combined with symphonic metal majesty, then Master Boot Record, or is it pronounced record? I don't know, the English language sucks ball peen hammers, but this particular artist doesn't. Gritty synth metal with a Sega Genesis inspired tone. It's what happens when you take chiptunes, synthwave, industrial, symphonic, and metal and put it into a blender. And that right there is a surprisingly delicious concoction. If you're playing the more recent Doom games and get tired of Mick Gordon's 10-string guitar cacophony, MBR will fit that gameplay like a glove. Up next is a progressive psychedelic rock band called Elder. I first discovered them back in 2017 via their album Reflections of a Floating World, one of my favorite albums of that particular year. I've also checked out their 2 other recent albums, Omens and Innate Passage, and they're quite good as well. As a fan of both metal and psychedelic music, this stuff is quite to my liking, and I would highly recommend it to the stoner crowd. Speaking of stoner metal, if you want to discover more bands of this particular style, I'd recommend subscribing to 666 Mr. Doom on YouTube. They post full albums from a variety of artists in this field. Moving on to some industrial metal, Three Teeth. This band is probably most famous for their industrial metal cover of Pumped Up Kicks. You know, the song about bringing your Nerf gun to school. Except this time, it doesn't sound like a children's nursery rhyme. This cover's got teeth. 3 of them to be exact. This band takes the very mid-90s industrial rock and metal genre and updates it with elements of nu metal, metalcore, and synthwave. Hate to bring up Doom again, but when and if they make another Doom game, have Three Teeth make the soundtrack, please. And for the love of God, don't do them wrong like you did Mick Gordon. Up next is a band that I was recommended by my avatar artist, State Champs. With 2000's nostalgia growing ever stronger by the day, I think it's time critics lay off trashing those rock bands that refuse to leave the 2000s sound behind. You know, those modernity-embracing asshats from Pitchfork and Rolling Stone. Seriously, when and if trap dies a painful death, your fanatical appraisal of that hackneyed genre will look infinitely more dated than the so-called butt rock acts that you trash. State Champs are a band from what I've heard of them, kept the 2000s pop-punk sound kicking in a time when it was most uncool. And even though I'm not a super fan of that genre, I respect that. Other famous pop-punk acts from the 2000s, such as Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy, and a great act of cowardice, basically became electro-pop acts during the latter half of the 2010s. But thankfully we have more underground acts like State Champs for those not fond of that rock goes pop sellout shit. Overall, a decent pop-punk band from the modern age. Screw that MGK crap, this is real modern pop-punk done right. This artist has unfortunately gone quiet since 2019. Maybe they saw the hell world that awaited us and said fuck it. I wanted to shed some light on the genre of dungeon synth, as I think it's the ultimate relaxation music, particularly this artist's medieval fantasy spin on it. Whenever I'm meditating out in the forest, and yes, that is indeed something I like to do, Mother Nature fucking rules, I'll turn on some Fife to relax as I enjoy the fresh air and beautiful scenery. And let me tell you, connecting with both Mother Nature and music at the same time is pure catharsis. But enough of my tree-hugging hippie rhetoric. Fife absolutely rules and walks a fine line between dungeon synth and bardcore. This band is probably most known for their lead singer Riley Gale, who sadly passed away a few years back. Thankfully, Power Trip lives on with a new lead singer. There were many bands attempting to bring back that 80s thrash metal sound during the 2000s, but none did it better than Power Trip. Nightmare Logic in particular is arguably one of the best metal records of the last decade full stop, one that even managed to win over mainstream critics. Some other modern acts I'd like to quickly go over because I don't want to make this video 2 hours long are of course King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, a master of all styles rock band that managed to gain a cult following due to their weirdness. Death Grips is a pretty damn good avant-garde rap rock group, and as a lifelong metal fan myself, I've always appreciated their abrasive sound. Royal Blood was probably my favorite modern rock band when I was a teenager, during those dregs of 2014 to 15. And I was also fond of Arctic Monkeys AM around the same time, one of the very few rock albums to gain true mainstream attention during the 2010s. Love 'em or hate 'em, Ghost are one of the most well-known modern rock acts for a reason, and a great entryway into heavy music. As for rap, I'm not big into modern rap. The last decent mainstream rap I can personally think of is Eminem's early 2010 stuff. But I've always respected Run the Jewels, one of the handful of genuine rap acts to come out of the last decade. I could go on, but the moral of the story is that even though things have been going downhill for a while in the mainstream, there will always be good tunes lying beneath the surface. And hell, actually go back to the chart toppers of the past, there was shitty music to be heard even back then. Boomers often see the 70s as some golden age of music, but the Pink Floyds and Black Sabbaths of the world were being far usurped in terms of popularity by vapid shit such as Disco Duck, My Ding-a-ling, and The Streak. Those last two songs are literally about masturbation and streaking respectively. Proof positive that the uncouth novelty song claptrap we see from the likes of Cardi B these days were very much a thing even in the 70s. Maybe I'll do a video about bad old pop one day, but for now, I'll concur that the modern music landscape is worse than any other period in the last 50 plus years, mainly because of the lack of countercultural music on the charts, dumbed down lyrics, and obnoxious production values. I mean, it's no wonder consumption of new music has been on the decline over the past couple of years, but that doesn't mean that music is dead as a whole. The artists I've mentioned throughout this video are proof of that, and I have a link to most of their Bandcamp pages so you can support them financially. So do the music industry a favor and support these small artists instead of buying pop rappers' McDonald's meals. Anyways, if you have any favorite underground artists you'd like to recommend, feel free to name them in the comments below. As for me, I think I need to go meditate out in the forest for a bit.